In today's video, we are going to create an amazing poster design in Photoshop. Grab your mouse as we dive in. First things first, we are going to create a new document. Choose a solid color. With a solid color in place, we are going to create a new layer. Grab a soft tone brush. When it's set to white, we are going to make the brush bigger with the right bracket key. And we are going to click once. Reduce the opacity. With the layer selected, Ctrl J to make a copy. Then we are going to set blend mode of the copy to overlay. Now let's grab our asset for this tutorial. So we are going to copy these three layers, Ctrl C to copy, Ctrl V to paste. With this layer selected, Ctrl T to transform. With this layer selected, we right click and convert that into a smart object. We transform that a bit. We do the same for this. We transform this, we make it smaller. Selecting all three layers, we are just going to drop it right here. Create a new layer right here. Reduce flow and opacity. Foreground is set to white. Then we are just going to paint. So we are going to reduce the opacity. Now let's grab the next item. With that in place, we are going to create a mask. With the mask selected, we are going to grab the gradient tool. Then we are just going to drag this way to erase. We position this right here. We are going to create a curves adjustment layer above all layers. Reduce the opacity. With this layer selected, we are going to create a curves adjustment layer clipped onto the layer so the effects apply solely to the layer. Reduce the opacity. We are going to grab this, Ctrl C to copy, Ctrl V to paste, Ctrl T to transform. Then we are going to drop the layer. We just drop it right here. We just have to make a copy by pressing Ctrl J. Then we are going to press Ctrl T to transform. We right click and we are going to flip that horizontally. Create a curves adjustment layer clipped onto the layer. Let's grab the rest of the items. We are going to create a curves adjustment layer. Reduce the opacity. So with this layer selected, we are going to create an exposure adjustment layer clipped onto the layer. With the mask selected, Ctrl I to invert. With the soft brush, increase opacity a bit. Foreground is set to white. Right click and change roundness, and we are just going to paint some shadows. With this layer selected, we are going to create an exposure adjustment layer clipped onto the layer. With the mask selected, Ctrl I to invert. With a soft brush, foreground is set to white. We are just going to paint some shadows. With the same technique, we are going to create an exposure adjustment layer. Invert the mouse by pressing Ctrl R. With a soft brush, we are just going to paint shadows or highlights. This layer selected, we are going to create an exposure adjustment layer clipped onto the layer. With the mask selected, Ctrl I to invert. With a soft brush, foreground is set to white, and we are just going to paint some shadows. Reduce the opacity. We are going to create another exposure adjustment layer already clipped onto the layer. With the mask selected, Ctrl I to invert. With a soft brush, we are going to paint some highlights. So we need some contour shadow to put that in place. With the layer selected, we are just going to create a new layer just beneath that. Grab a soft brush, change roundness and angle. Opacity is set to 100. Foreground is set to black, and we are just going to create some contour shadows. With this layer selected, we are going to create an exposure adjustment layer clipped onto the layer. With the mask selected, Ctrl I to invert. With a soft brush, reduce opacity. Foreground is set to white, and we are just going to paint some shadows. Now we are going to create a new layer right here. Grab the polygonal lasso tool. Create a selection. Create a selection this way. Once you have a selection, we are going to right click and fill. So we are filling this with the foreground color, which is black. Then we hit OK. Ctrl D to deselect. Once you have that in place, with the layer selected, we are going to convert that into a smart object. Ctrl T, we right click and we are going to distort this just a bit. With the layer selected, we are going to create a mask. With the mask selected, grab the gradient tool. Drag this way to erase. With the layer selected, we go for filter. Then we are going to apply Gaussian blur at a radius of 4.8. Then we hit OK. With the mask selected, we are going to grab a soft hand brush. Right click and change roundness. Reduce opacity. Foreground is set to black. And we are just going to mask out this portion so we can actually create the fading effect. Create a new layer with a soft hand brush. Change roundness a bit and you are going to paint more shadows. So we are just going to finish it up with some particles and paint more shadows. Once we have all that in place, then we are going to press Ctrl Alt Shift E to merge all layers. Then we go for camera raw. So filter, camera raw, filter. All we are going to do is we are going to play with the settings until we like the outcome. Once that is looking good, then we hit OK. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I do hope to see you in the next one. Till next time, stay creative.